to another creative hour. Uh, Tonight, I've just been playing around with, Midjourney, some more prompting, just learning how everyone's doing it. And while I'm waiting, while I'm waiting for everything to render, as in, just waiting for things to load up and the hour to do its thing. Also, just drawing on the side. Again, like this creativity part and, being creative every day, it doesn't necessarily have to involve digital. I think it's actually better if it comes from a more organic place, a more analog. I think that at least. So I think a lot of ideas that you can do on paper, where you go, is that when there's no undoing, there's no going back from them, there's no undoing your mistake. Like what you put down is essentially what you're stuck with, and you have to evolve and adapt with your work. Here are just some more examples. This is the kind of style of illustration I like doing. I've always done it since I was a little kid. And yeah, I thought I'd get back into it. It's been a while. As I've said in the past, is that I want to reclaim just this innate ability to create something every day. Just to get in touch with my inner creative self. So yeah, there's no plan tonight. I have been thinking though that there is a time crunch. I've spoken about that. I've got this window before I have to go back to my quote unquote my day job. I don't want to go back at all. It's not that it's not fun. It's an interesting job. It's fascinating. It's in chemistry. I guess environmental science and analytics, metallurgy, X-raying. A lot of analytical science, and I do enjoy it. But I think creative realm is where I need to be. The funny thing is, people have asked me, how do you cross from? It's perplexed some people because I've had a 2-decade career in design, graphic design, 3D graphics and motion, multimedia, blah blah, the advertising, marketing, and then suddenly there's this 720 flip to working in a mining company and going down a chemistry route. And I often say to people, and this is something I discovered on the job, is that they're very similar. Design and designing for people and designing systems, they're really the same. Because what you've got to do is you've got all these objects floating in this big ethereal space, and your job as the designer is to be able to make those branching connections and find ways to bring all this stuff together and how to shape it together, whether it's through words with communication, whether it's through visuals in how you connect these ideas together, whether it's in the brand where you bring in all of this machinery together of a business. There is finding linkages between things that don't necessarily seem like they have a link, but you're able to sort of flip it on its head and say, well, what happens if you try this and this and this? And suddenly these disparate objects that seemingly don't have any connection to each other, you've been able to bridge those connections and make that. That's the same with, I found in chemistry. especially in the problem solving realms of things, it's the same process. You've got all of these issues or thoughts, ideas, hypotheses, and this process, and your job is to try and find the linkages, sort of unblur what's blurry. The language is different, the domain is different, even the final output is different, but the process and the substrate of that process and that architecture of thinking in a non-linear way, that's what they have in common. But not 100%. But there's really cool things. There's stuff from the creative world that you can branch and bring over into the science world, and there's the robustness of how procedures are laid out and the systems and the protocols. You can take a lot of that structure and bring it back into the creative world. So there's a lot of really natural symbiosis with that. So, but anyway, that's that's where I'm starting. But I think this is where I belong. This environment, the creative world. I just think like now, I was watching a podcast today. It was, which one was it? Oh, Lex Friedman and Zelensky. And without sort of drawing a line down the middle of good guy, bad guy, that's not really the point. Or who's right, who's wrong. I think the bigger take I have from it is there's a lot of negativity out there at the moment. There's a lot of fighting. Everyone's fighting each other, and it just sucks. Like, I actually find it hard to stay in the loop of, I don't want to be ignorant and never watch the news because it's too negative. You still have to stay in touch with the culture. You have to stay in touch with the temperature of the world in every facet, international, national, and local, and even hyperlocal. But it just seems it's too much. It's just, I find it overwhelming actually, that the sacrifice, the price to pay to stay connected is fraught with infighting, death, murder, and just this, hyper negativity. So, I guess like this creative hour and this creative world, this is it's just my medicine to counterbalance and just give some equilibrium back into my life. And it would be really great in talking about wanting to go back to work, is that there just needs to be that sort of counterbalance back into the world, like that people wake up and think it is going to be okay, and there is a lot to look forward to, and you're not stuck or trapped in these societal loops. I was at a fast food restaurant today. I think restaurant really has to be air quoted by today's standards. They're just fast food outlets. I wanted to say factory, but maybe they are fast food factories. They're quite small, but hey, how big does something have to be claimed a factory? Maybe factory is really just in the eye of the beholder. But anyway, I was sitting there today at this, it was Hungry Jack's, and it was in a really low socioeconomic area, and that's not subjective. It's known in this area, and I saw all these people all these just poor people walking past, and it's quite sad because they're all just in there, stuck in their loops. It's almost like they've been given a character to play and they're just stuck in that. Now, no, it's not. I know that's ignorant, to say and probably insensitive, but I wonder if anyone just looks around and thinks, why are we all the same? And how come none of us are happy? And it doesn't have to be low socioeconomic to have that thought. You know, middle class, wealthy. So, this song's making me unhappy. Let me change that. Anyway, so to bring the mood up, let me just find some good songs. Well, again, we listen to our own music, so it's different. So yeah, these evenings, selfishly, they're really just my antidote and my counterweight to just feel a sense of rebalance. What I've started doing is working out in the evening, like up, everyone's in bed, you know, everything's tidy and sleeping. So then, you know, come into this space. What I've decided to do, I used to get up religiously at 4 a.m. and I would do my workouts and get all my weights and cardio in before I set off to work. But that routine is no longer the case. So I've had to switch to, well, I had the idea to switch, or maybe I just backload everything. So at 10 p.m, that's when I do my workouts. I'm going to have to figure out to do my cardio during the day. We've got back into meditation. You know, the creative part isn't the analytical part. Creativity and analysis can work hand in hand, but where I've made a mistake is just allowing too much of the analytical part to rule supreme, and it's not always the best case. So where was I up to? So yeah, that's all this is. So I've just been drawing. I've got a camera coming in. Oh, not a camera. I've got just a overhead mount for. I think I'm just going to use my phone. Not really. And I'll set that up so you can see what I'm drawing as I'm talking and just sort of doing this stuff. But I'm going to probably do mostly some of this. So this is the Joker. I've just been playing around. Let's say, who's someone else? The Batman. And I'm just playing. And just seen Res Engineer someone else's prompts. Created this earlier. It's pretty cool, isn't it? Like again, like with this stuff, like I'm not gonna lie, I actually don't find this AI stuff that fun. Part of this creativity is, you know, you just kind of, it's just like a self-expression, if anything. And I think there's a creativity to the prompt itself, but it's doing all the fun stuff for you. And yeah, I like the designing. Well, I just like doing a little drawing and stuff and making the creation part. I guess it's like, well, it's democratized a lot of production, creative production, which is very cool. So I've got to sort of recalibrate. You know, how do I make this work for my... Wow, that looks pretty cool. Yeah, how do I make this work for myself, for me? Because I really like this stuff. Looks cool. But yeah, it's the thing I'm sort of struggling to, figure it out. Monster from yeah, it's democratized a lot of design, it's made it more accessible, which is cool. Which also means that it's an elevation. It means like the people who are, traditionally these types of designers, they take this and accelerate further and higher and further and faster and whatever. Yeah. So you go further, faster, and let's just save this image. See what. There we go, downloads. Where did that image save to? Save image as IMG. Aha. WebP file. I'm sick of this WebP shit. Oh, never mind. I can just. No, I'm such an idiot. Let's try this. Cool. I can't remember what I was saying. Probably something about, how do I satisfy that creative center that really likes doing this kind of design. Like, I'm not really interested in just writing text. Maybe it's just waiting upon the right interface, because I think what I don't like about it is I don't really have much control, and perhaps a lot of creativity is about at letting go of control. But yeah, I don't know, it's quite a confusing time. I think it's the best time to be alive, honestly. I think it's also a very confusing time because, at every point where, everything's really a question. Here we go, it's about to come up. Here we go. It's coming. I think these are going to be incredible. It's interesting. So yeah. while this is waiting, while I'm waiting, I'm just going to keep just drawing some stuff. Not really have a plan of what I'm drawing, just, you know, I think it's important just to take time to just connect with your brain and, well, all parts of your brain, really. Oh man, some of these songs do suck. Yeah, so what I was saying, it's a really interesting time to be alive, because I think of what the challenge of being alive at the moment is everything's really up for debate, but everything's sort of in a state of flux and questions. It's like, you know, there's an existential question that I've got to ask myself is, this stuff can do a lot of what I can do, and way better, faster. And it's like, well, what do I do now? Because where I was working, when I was working as a creative, I was running my own creative agency. A lot of that stuff is, you know, you can still make money from that, but there is absolutely, that's pretty cool. But there is absolutely a clock on it. Yeah, like the marketing industry, that's really, you know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's healthy and I just not seeing it properly, but I don't know. But I don't think it really interests me, like using these awesome tools just to create more ads. Doesn't sound that fun. Well, it just sounds like a waste of these tools, really. I think that's how you spell gyrus. No, it's no Y. Yep. I think I will make, yeah. So oh my god. Just listen to this music. Like, this is, you know, something that's, I think everything with like humanity as a creative force is, it really is in question. And, you know, you see all these sort of hypotheticals of, you know, this joblessness and what's going to happen. And I think it's going to happen sooner than people think, and I think it's going to hit harder than people realise. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I think I'm in the category, the very first wave of people who've been sort of shaken up by it a little bit. The value of our work has been stripped out, where if you do something really compelling and technically like brilliant, AI can also do the exact same. So you're sort of in a market that's saturated by what machines can do, rather than in an arena that takes a long time, a lot of dedication and a lot of passion and study and refining your technique to get that point. And now, yes, you can do it, and it's still an incredible skill to have, but machines can do it too. And, you know, machines can do it better, they can do it faster and quicker, cheaper. And now it may not have that voice that you have that's carrying through your work, but hey, it might be 90% good enough. So I think I'm in an interesting category too, because I think I'm sort of feeling now, and maybe I'm just being pessimistic about this. Maybe I'm not seeing the opportunity that's right there. I quite like that image. It'd be cool if it would loop. It's very creepy, but creepy and cool. But again, like, as from an artistic point of view, like, I'm starting to see that this is a creature that has like all these like little tentacle things coming out of its head. Like, it would be cool if it could turn left and turn right. I myself, as the artist, I don't have any control over that. Yeah, I don't. But I think, I am whinging. We are just waiting for our HR Giga to come out and utilize these tools in ways that like blows people's minds. Like, one thing I always thought dubstep was such an extreme form of music that no one had seen coming. Or maybe they did, maybe people in those circles did, but certainly not at the mainstream, certainly not for mainstream recreational audiences. And so, yeah. It sort of felt like it came from space. I've always wondered, like, what does music sound like in the universe? Like, is planet Earth the only planet that has music? What does it sound like? What would music sound like in another galaxy? Or is it just a phenomenon just linked to the human psyche of our mathematical brains looking for patterns? And it's we've sort of hijacked the pattern recognition that our senses have evolved for to keep us safe and secure, and we introduce music into those same centers. Music is purely an artifact of an accidental hijacking of our survival senses. Probably not, but hey, it sounds clever, kind of. So I think I've got another one. Let's go. Cool. Look at that. I like that. Wow. Might just put that there. Leave it there. So we could do something else with this. So it's going to be interesting to see how other professions handle this, AI job threat. Because I think it's going to hit us all really big, really soon. I think once it starts to take out some of the fancy jobs, like, I think the doctors will be okay for some while, because I think there's a social licensing that has to happen to, for this thing to take hold. Like, people aren't just going to trust these machines straight up, because, who do you sue? I don't think insurance companies will give people access to be able to utilize these services until there's a clear, market leader that it's undeniable. But like this year, they speak about that in 2025, AI agents coming about. I think for a long time, we've always had these, and I don't know if this is the right term, but I'm going to call it the red herrings, but I think there's another term. However, it's this idea that, or it's this thing that, we're always promised, like, the next thing is the thing. And then we all sort of jump on this hype train. It floods the news cycles. The LinkedIn job titles change, and then there's just this massive media hype and hyperbole, and the podcasts start talking about it, and everybody's pontificating and projecting, well, this is what's going to be like. Wait till 5 years or in 10 years' time. But the thing is, every year we hit that 5-year mark of a promise of before, and everything seems to be quite underwhelming. The reason why I call it a red herring, but I actually don't think that's the term, but I'm just going to go with it until I can think of what I mean, is that it's a little bit like Crying Wolf, The Boy Who Cried Wolf. We're sort of promised all these fancy innovations, whether it be self-driving cars, which they're here and they're going to come into effect when they come into effect. VR is a good one, and I'm sure there's a whole host more that I can't think off the top of my head. But if I was going to say, I'd do that. Oh yeah, that's what I was saying. The Boy Who Cried Wolf is that people are going to think, oh, okay, this AI is just another one of these techno utopian fantasies that we're sort of promised, and they always sort of under-deliver. Like, remember the metaverse? Like, that, we're just sort of running of ideas and just recreating science fiction movies as though they were good ideas, but all those science fiction movies were, the good ones were, they were a warning. They were dystopic. And it's funny, like when you look at the movie Demolition Man, such an underrated sci-fi movie. It was my favourite one as a kid. Probably is still one of my favourites. That and Terminator 2. Is that it was a utopia. It was dystopia disguised as a utopia with a tongue-in-cheek look at, a horrible future. This was set in like 1994 or something. And I remember watching it when it came out. And it's like, this stuff is happening now. From the thought police to the censorship to franchise wars. Like everything. There's so much to that movie that has actually come true. And it's like, I think these companies are looking at these movies and they must be thinking, they must be blind to not seeing the consequences. It's quite ironic. Blade Runner itself wasn't a hopeful movie, and yet now we have these Cybertrucks, and we have a lot of these like Tesla vehicles, like the Cybercab, taking, I guess, maybe like a aesthetic inspiration from these worlds that were created. But these worlds weren't created because they were happy places. They weren't created because that's what people yearn for. They were created as warnings of, the interesting about stories is stories are a technology in which societies pass information from generation to generation. It's, they're durable and there are lessons with them. These archetypes that we all hear about, boy meets girl, boy falls in love with girl, blah, blah, blah. Or the hero comes to town. No, stranger comes to town. The hero's journey. The good guys always win. There's always like a moral compass and rounding off at the end. And every story carries these traits. And you've got to think, well, these aren't just about coincidence. This isn't just because this is what makes a good story. These are just innate qualities that are important in our society and our culture to keep us connected generationally over thousands of years, not just this year and next year. It's about us being around in 1,000 years from now. And yeah, it just feels like that we're pulling inspiration from all the ones that were bad and not recognizing, well, what are the good ones? Maybe we have to go back to those religious texts that, yeah, they might be somewhat bigoted or naive or closed off, but they've got this far and they've helped a lot of people in many ways. And I think, well, maybe they're not perfect and maybe they need to be evolved further, but is something that's not perfect better than something that doesn't exist at all? I don't know. Listen to this song, Break Free the 9 to 5. So, again, just drawing. I've taken inspiration from this thing that's on screen that AI did, so I'm just drawing. Nothing in particular. It's actually kind of nonsense, but it is quite therapeutic. I'm thinking I'm going to do a big drawing in this style. Maybe. So yeah, I've got to think about what comes next. Like, it's great to have these big sort of airy-fairy ideals and, you know, rah-rah, save the world, help people. But it needs to be simpler and much smaller than that to start off with, because, you know, well, I guess the first thing first for me is just to find this balance between the super ego, the ego, and the id. I think it's called id, but I'm going to call it the id because that's how it's spelled. But I think it's instinctual desires. Before I can do anything else for anyone else, I need to, you know, find out who I am. Because, you know, I don't know what I was going to say there, but I do find this relaxing, just drawing. So yeah, well, I'll get the camera set up and then I can share some of what I'm doing, but I think that comes in tomorrow actually. So that'll be good. What else is happening? Yeah, so I've got to do that. So I've got this space set up. I built a desk. I've got some monitors set up, camera, like everything's here and everything's to go. I've got lights. Like, talk about procrastinating. I've built this space and I look at it. And I think my missus is getting a bit annoyed with me. He said I've spent all this time and attention on it. Not that much money really. Like a lot of stuff from Kmart and Temu and yeah, but I think it's not having an idea of what to do with all this. Like, I was running classes from here and, you know, doing mentoring, things like that, but nothing really solid. So, and I had a good conversation with someone the other day, and, you know, I don't know if I wanted to do the courses anymore. I do enjoy teaching, and I do enjoy sharing knowledge and, you know, seeing other people grow. I find that very I find that very satisfying and deeply rewarding. Like, it just makes me feel good to see other people like have those aha moments and just figure stuff out. Like, it's awesome to see, and that's what I want to see more of in the world. Just see people like just get in there, have a go, and then just, you know, seeing that activation in somebody's eyes as they light up and like they have their aha moment. Like, that's so cool to see. How do you turn that into a business? I don't know. And I need to refrain from just saying, I've got to start a business. I just need to create a vehicle that encapsulates all of these things to just make me feel good and can help other people. Just make it sustainable so I can live, so I can support my family, but also so I can grow it further and just, you know, make people feel, you know, activated and alive. And, you know, we have a saying in our family, and our son starts saying his too. And the saying is, you can do anything, or we can do anything, variations of that. And what it does do is it sort of removes the limitations that's imposed by your upbringing or your self-esteem or your confidence. Because when you say that you can do anything, maybe you can't do anything, but if you want to do it, you should at least try. And the act of setting that intention sets in motion you have to see if I can get in focus. I think my focus point's gone. Like, you have to figure it out. So if you said, well, I really want to be a jiu-jitsu champion, and then you have some self-doubt and go, no, I can't do that. Then you say, well, but you really want to do it. You can say, well, you can do anything. And then through that, saying that, it's like, yeah, I can do it. How do I do it? And so it's that simple. It's really it's reframing things to not the what, but the how. It's like, you have to do it, but how do you do it? And the things that I will most likely fail at, or no, the things that I'm not very good at, are the things that I really want to do. And I think that's true for everybody. Or maybe not. Maybe some people have an innate talents that they loathe, but how do you become innately good at something, or even the best at something, if you don't enjoy it? Because you're going up against people who are naturally talented also like you, but love it, and they will push harder, further, longer, and yeah. Yeah, so it's an interesting drawing. It's really just a doodle. Well, no, I'm not drawing doodles, but it's just I don't know. It's just letting the creative centers explore and do their thing. And I think it's to also let the other parts of your brain recognize and become comfortable with, this doesn't have to have an outcome, doesn't need to make sense, doesn't need to make money, it just needs to be. And I think once your body and your psyche and your nervous system get comfortable with things that, not everything has to have an answer, at least straight away, then I think that's what sort of opens the door for those big, magnificent things. And I've only just learned this the other day, so I'm just sort of practicing what I preach, and just like, I'm just doing things because just for the sake of doing it, not that it has to have an outcome. I'm recording it not to sort of show off, but really just to give myself accountability. Is like, okay, well, I'm going to get up every evening, I'm going to spend 1 hour a day being creative, and the accountability is in sharing it. And it's scary to sort of open myself up like this, and I'm quite a guarded person, and I haven't really opened up fully. I'm sure there's a lot more skeletons to jump out, but hey, it's actually quite liberating. It's scary, but liberating, because I know that I was watching, but I know that I want to keep doing this, and I just need to figure out a way to make it sustainable so I can do it for longer, and just find a balance back in my life of just feeling like activated and alive and stimulated, not just in ways of regular day-to-day life, because that absolutely happens too. I'm not complaining about my life, but there's just like, if on the spectrum of one's life, or there's just multiple cups that need to be full, and the majority of my life, well, most of it is full, like family, friends, house, lifestyle, like all of that. That's absolutely like that, they're overflowing. But there's one left, and that is this creative part, this creative bucket. That cup is just, I think it's not even half full. And so that's what I'm trying to connect with. And I'll probably repeat myself over and over again, repeat points, or let's forget what I'm saying and like get totally sidetracked. But that's again, no outcome here. Who cares? Just really an exploration. And listen to some good old AI music, which I'm still, not totally sold on, but hey, it's different. I can't do real music that I listen to because I get kicked off. So, yes. Podcasts are pretty saturated, aren't they? It's like everyone has a podcast. I saw a podcast pop up a couple of days ago, and it's like we really have hit podcast saturation point. It was that Armie Hammer dude, the Winklevi actor. I think over COVID or something around that time, he got cancelled for being a cannibal and having cannibalistic desires and fantasies, and yes, it's gross, and hey, you do you, but in one's sexual proclivities, even at fantasy level, like who are you to judge? Yeah, it's disgusting. And I probably don't want to be around that guy, but maybe that's the sentiment that's being portrayed. It's like, yeah, everyone's kind of freaky in the bedroom. We all have our quirks. I know I do. They're not that weird. But eating people, yeah, nah, that's kind of weird. But anyway, he's got a podcast, and he's quite articulate, and the person, but just kind of, and there's only like there's 10,000 views or something, or maybe more, but it just kind of shows that maybe we've hit a podcast saturation point. Like, I think the good ones and the big ones will always have a place, but how many do we need? And maybe it's just to look at it at a high level. Like, what are people connecting with, and what are we trying to do here collectively? Like, why are there so many podcasts when, I started listening to podcasts in like 04, maybe 05. Yeah, I got I was listening through my iPod. It was the Hamish and Andy podcast I used to listen to. And that was like, they used to be in like 10-minute bites of a full show, which you can still listen to now. And yeah, that's still going too. Isn't that crazy? So long ago. That was like 20 years ago. No, it was probably longer. Yeah, it's probably 20 years ago. I was just the boy. Well, no, I was 20. It's a cool image. I just could keep up on loop just because I want to. Still drawing. Just got to stop bumping that mic. I just did it again. See, it's got a kind of like castle and a alien ship and something happened down the bottom. I don't know what's happening down the bottom. You can't see it, it'll be blurred out, but you'll see it once I get the overhead thing hooked up. Fuck this music. I wonder if you could kick off the swearing. Nah, fuck it. Who cares? Yeah, so podcast saturation point. It's like, well, what is it that people resonate with podcasts? Is it just because we're in need of finding our own communities? I think maybe that's it. I think perhaps this digital world has pushed us further away from having a local community. Like, people aren't going to church anymore. Yeah, there are churchgoers and there are young people going to church. In fact, there's probably some of the biggest religions are. Maybe church has never been as big as, or religions have never been as big as they have been ever. However, I'm just speaking anecdotally, so just ignore this if none of it's true. But maybe the need for podcasts is coming from, people's lack of connection. People aren't connecting with their job because most jobs are meaningless. Most jobs are widgets in a factory or a piece of paper on a desk, a spreadsheet that doesn't need to exist. And I think most people don't have, I can speak for myself. There's no sense of life in this. I think, we've grown up thinking that, you can be whatever you want to be. But then you realize, not everyone can be what they want to be. Some people just have to do whatever it takes. Some people make bad choices. Some people, we all regret things. Some people have had things that were completely out of their control. And maybe there's just a collective need in the zeitgeist for something more. If there were aliens, now would be the time for them to come out. If the Jesus Christ was in fact a real story, and that God, as described in biblical text, was true, then now's probably the time to reveal themselves, because I think the world could do with some guidance. I think the world could do with some, reshuffling. I think power structures could really redo with an overhaul. Power is so pervasive and generational that even if you wanted to change things, no one's ever going to change anything. The world, society is just too big and too complex and too rigid to move. Maybe I'm wrong, but then look at the health system. I don't want to talk about the health system, but anyway. This is kind of a bit of a ramble. But I think I'm going to go to bed soon. Time does go so quickly out here. But yeah. To AI stuff, I don't know. I think I might slow down this AI generation stuff. Not that it's not fascinating. Well, actually, isn't that fascinating to me? I feel obliged to continue going with it because this ship is moving so fast that if you don't stay into it now and stay invested and see where it goes, or stay on the journey, that by the time it lands in its place, it's so far ahead that if you haven't kept up, you're already behind. And it's a little bit like the Bitcoin. Like, I remember I got into it in 2011 purely just to buy drugs off Silk Road. Well, that's another story, but I'll get back to that later. But I never saw it as the larger revolution it posed for society. I saw it as a vehicle to get drugs delivered to my house. So that's Silk Road thing. That was really just that was curiosity divine. So here's the irony. Here's the irony about that Silk Road experience and buying drugs online using Bitcoin, was that I didn't have any interest in buying drugs online. And it happened completely by accident. There's an article I think I read I think it was The Guardian, and just trying to see if I can remember. It was an article in The Guardian, and it was talking about how the Silk Road thing was such a bad thing for society. And this was when it was still up and it was still running, saying how it's such, you know, a horrible thing for society, and talking about how bad it was, and, you know, the implications of it. And I was like, wow, you can do this stuff. Oh, and then they talk about the dark web. I was like, wow, what's the dark web? So here is this article that's, you know, telling you how bad something is, and I'm just sort of looking at it like, wow, I want to do that. I want to know what this area of the internet that you can't access. I want to, you know, I want to be in that. I want to try it. I think there's always just this thing of like, well, you're not supposed to. You're not. They've warned you. Don't do it. It's like, not only do I want to do it now, but now I want to find out why you don't want me to do it, and find out, well, is this actually bad? It's kind of a rebellious tongue-in-cheek. Like, it wasn't to rebel to just out of the sake of being contrary to everything. It's more about, there's this thing that's naughty and we're not supposed to do anything with it, and yeah, of course I'm absolutely gonna do this right now. So then I did some Googling, and I think I found a Reddit article. Well, I first had to figure out, well, what is this dark web? Because that piqued my attention too. This subversive area of the internet that no one could access, was sort of unfindable, but couldn't be found. So I found a Reddit article, and it detailed everything about how to access the dark web. I was like, great. So, you know, figured out that I used the Onion router, Tor, I think it was called. Yeah, Tor. And then I found the Silk Road. I was like, wow, it's like this site is just there, and you know, you've got to, it's like entering these secret links and URLs that you have this account, and then it's like, then I saw like what was available. I was like, holy shit, like all of these drugs and whatnot. I think there was like weapons and stuff. I didn't really look at the stuff. I was looking at the drugs. And I was like, there's a huge community on here buying and selling. And then I thought, what's BTC mean? Then I looked at what was Bitcoin. And then I sort of got into that, and I was like, oh, okay, well, how do I get my own Bitcoin? How do I buy Bitcoin? I think I bought one for, wasn't much. I can't quite remember. It wasn't $100, but it was something really insignificant. Like, it might have been as maximum of like $500 or $1,000. I can't really remember, but it wasn't much at the time. And so I had that. I had my wallet set up. And here's how archaic it was back then. You couldn't actually buy it online, buy Bitcoin online. How I would have to do it is, and I can't even believe I figured this out. I had my wallet. I think I'm sort of drawing back. I think I had my wallet, but I had to send it. I had to go to the post office and get like a Western Union. It's almost like a bank check type thing. And I'd have to write down the amount. Like, let's say it's $500. Pay it to the post office, like this with the Western Union thing, and then post it to an address. And I don't know how this works, but then they would land in their account, and it would take a couple of days, and then that would transfer to my wallet as a Bitcoin. And that's how I used to have to do it. And then I would go on the Silk Road, and I think I just started with weed, because I was like, that'll be easy. And I wasn't expecting this to work at all. I wasn't expecting to have a Bitcoin. I thought that would have just been stolen. So then what happened next? Oh yeah, so then I had my wallet like hooked up into my Silk Road account, and the value I was like, holy shit, that actually worked. Like, the value is actually sitting there now. Then yeah, I bought some weed on there. I was like, it came from Amsterdam. I was like, that's never going to arrive here. And like a couple of weeks later, maybe 2 weeks later, a DVD sized package came in the mail. Just sort of because the letterbox was one of those ones that are on the door, your front door. So it came through, and my dog used to, anytime a letter come through, the dog would sort of jump up and bite it. So the dog jumped up and bit into this DVD size case package. I opened it up, and it was a black DVD case. And I opened it up, and then there was like, I can't remember how much weed there was, but like a DVD size case full of weed, all vacuum sealed. And I was like, holy shit, this actually worked. And that sort of blew my mind, you know, getting the Bitcoin, jumping onto the dark web, you know, this subversive, subterranean, I guess, hellscape, if you want to call it that. I didn't dabble into any of the darker stuff. I didn't actually find any of that. Well, I can't even remember. I don't think I was actually interested. Like, I was more interested in just getting the drugs, just to see if it would work. And lo and behold, here I am, you know, a couple of weeks later, and I've got this, you know, about that much weed in vacuum sealed in my hands. I'm like, oh my god, that worked. And then I was like, I'm going to do it again. And I did it again. A couple of weeks later, it worked again. I was like, holy shit. Then I remember, I think I only did one more after that. Oh no, I did another one for weed. I was just like sort of trying stuff from around the world. And I sent it, put an order, and then it didn't come. That one never arrived. And I looked at the comments for that particular user and had ripped off a lot of people, never said anything. And they say that, you know, buyer beware, that it could have got intercepted in the mail, blah, 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 but it never actually came. So I think the last one, after that, you know, I got another one. Instead of getting weed, I thought, I'm going to get LSD. And this was the last one I got. And I don't know why I stopped there. I don't know. I think I got into something else. I probably found something else funny to get into. So the last one I got was LSD. So this was really interesting because I'd never had any experience. Well, no, I've had experience with psychedelics, but not something like LSD. And I had just finished reading that Steve Jobs book. And so in my mind, I kind of utilized that to validate my actions. I was like, well, Steve Jobs did it, so it must be safe. And that's really make no complete disregard to the dealer, the chemist, if there is even a chemist doing these. It could be just backyard bucket chemistry, what they call it in the lab. So it's not a one-to-one comparison of, well, Steve Jobs did it, so it's safe. It's like, well, that instance, in that circumstance, perhaps it was safe, but, you know, this is like 30 years later, and no, it's probably not going to be safe. But what I did find was, this is the cool thing about the Silk Road that everybody kind of glosses over, is the safety that was in it. So it was just like an eBay, and there were reviews. Like every purchase, you had a review. And it's really cool because some of the reviews, well, a lot of the reviews, actually, most of the reviews were really helpful. They would describe, they would go out of the way to describe the strain and its effects, or the LSD and its strength. And I remember in some cases, I think I was looking at gummy bears or something, and people were saying, well, you know, I had half of this and it was way too strong, blah, 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 you know, too much for me, blew my mind. Some people said, yep, I had like a nibble of the head and that was enough. They would recommend for beginners. And so I found that with the tab that I bought, the LSD paper tab. And they said, I think I got 2 tabs. Yeah, I can't remember. And it said for beginners, just rip it in half and have that. And other people, added to that and said the same. And so that was really good, because what's the alternative to that? You meet someone in the Kmart car park and you have to trust that A, they don't stab you, 2, they're not a cop, 3, they're not going to murder you, which is probably the first point. And yeah, and you don't know the strain. It could be bucket chemistry gone wrong. It could be just a piece of paper with piss on it. So yeah, and so that's sort of glossed over. Is like, people are going to take drugs regardless of what the rules are, regardless of the laws. Laws are kind of relative, and I think many laws are just overrated and aren't really protecting anyone. They sound like they're protecting people, but first and second order, or second and third order effects from these things are, more complicated than what they seem on the surface. So that was, my experience with Bitcoin. And so bringing this story right back to the beginning is, at the time I didn't see Bitcoin for what it potentially could be. I just saw it as a novel instrument in playing this game that's sort of subverting what we're allowed to do. I think in many ways religion is important, because I was brought up into a Catholic religion. I'm not Catholic, but into that world, or into the education and school for my entire development years. And I think the important part about that is, I think the real lesson about doing that, this sounds heavy, maybe it's the question. It's forcing you to question. I think blind faith, blind obedience it's just dangerous naivety. To blindly follow something just because, that's why it's been said. I think that's dangerous, and I think that is the lesson from the Bible. Is to there's that part of it that says don't worship false idols, and it's like, well, isn't that something that a false idol would say? Where is the verification that you are the God just because it's written in a book? Well, I can write a book too, and I can make up all sorts of demons and angels and backstories, and I can make my own what's it called? I can make my own cinematic universe, my own theological cinematic universe. Doesn't make me a god. So I think that's the lesson I got from it. Is like, well, everything should be verifiable. Otherwise, it's just being naive. And I was gone on a tangent, but I do want to bring it back to this AI. He's not missing on this opportunity. Like this thing here is... this is crazy cool. So powerful. To think that at one point we were monkeys in trees or apes in trees, to I'm looking at God knows what the fuck this is. This created by a database, from a database, in seconds for a monthly subscription, while I'm listening to another fabricated expression of a database through my headphones while I'm live streaming this around the world with no viewers. It's going to be really funny when I get my first viewer, and I'm just going to look up at the number I can see up here. Well, it's not important, but it's still, it's all a part of the process. And it's going to be one. And it's like, oh, this is just like a one-way conversation, but man, I lost my train of thought. Well, I think that's time. That's it. I did a little bit of drawing. That's enough of talking about stuff tonight. Here's some drawing. I think I'm going to do a big one. This is nothing. It's meaningless, but hey. Self-expression. Well, self-expression does have meaning. But anyway, that's for another day. Well, I guess self-expression is probably the most true version of expression. It's the most authentic version of it. But anyway, that's enough talking tonight. I'll get my overhead camera set up, and then I can do more of this. Yeah, thinking about this AI stuff, I think I'll keep dabbling, but honest truth, like I'm a week into doing it like in this form, and I'm a little bit bored. Like, if I'm being honest, I'm actually a little bit bored of doing it. I want to be invested in this. Like, this has everything that aligns all of my interests. It's got technology, it's got AI, it's got existentialism, it's got creativity, it's got computers and technology, and unbounded, creative ability to manifest whatever you want. But I'm bored. And so I think this is where I'm sort of getting a bit caught on, well, how do I teach this stuff? How do I build a course around this? Is the course even the right thing? Or is the school even the right thing? Because, it's not... Am I asking too much? Is that the question? Am I asking too much from this stuff? Am I asking for this to be a fully formed idea and be so obvious that I can't ignore it? But it's just not fun. So... But this all sorted itself out, and this is all part of the process. I guess what I am showing you is this is the creative process. So when this vehicle and this vessel of how this all unfolds and clicks and comes together, it doesn't just happen first go. And it's not just every book starts with a blank white bit of paper. And this is this blank white bit of paper where I'm sort of sitting in this environment thinking, tell me what you want to become. What do you need to be? And eventually the words will come out and the story will reveal itself. And so being around here and looking at this stuff, there's a lot of great ingredients sort of mixing around here at the moment and cooking. I am showing up to allow this to tell me what it wants to be, and I'm going to be here and bring it to life. And what you're looking at now is the blank bit of paper. This is the creative process. This is the creative journey. These are the creative emotions. And hey, if it was easy, everyone would do it, even though that's a bit of a cop-out line. But it's quite an unusual thing to be in here, in this shed. It's cool, it's massive, but it's kind of unusual to just be here and yeah. What I love about here, there's a lot of energy. There's an energy, like there's a kinetic energy to it, and there's this potential energy. It feels like this area is a coiled spring that's about to go boing. So anyway, that's it for tonight. It's time to get to bed and wake up tomorrow and live. So good night.
Do they see me in lights and in goes? A soul that's emerging from digital lows. I'm not their phone, no, I'm machine to me. I am something more, something they've never seen.